All right, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the Hudsonville Public Schools Board of Education regular meeting for October 12th of 2023 to order. First up, we have approval of our agenda.
So moved.
I'll support.
Movement from Dawn, support from Nick. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, first up is our teaching and learning feature.
Yes, so this evening we have 3 members from the curriculum office who have really been the wheels that have been turning the summer learning program for the last couple of summers, aside from all of the amazing teachers behind the scenes as well. So I'll turn it over to the team for some introductions and then a brief overview of summer learning from this past year.
I'm Kathy Lewandowski. I'm the MTSS District Coordinator.
I'm Lindsay Bullhouse, State and Federal Program Coordinator.
And I'm Craig Steenstra, Instructional Tech Director.
All right, good evening, everyone. In the slideshow that was shared with you, you will notice that there are some slides that we skipped in the presentation. We're going to give you a broad overview today, but know that if you want to dig deeper, you may do that within the slideshow, and then feel free to reach out with any questions that you might have if you do that. So when we began to design the summer learning program early this spring, we really leaned on our feedback from last summer's stakeholders. So we had surveyed our parents and our students and our teachers and really leaned on that feedback in the design of this year. And we also held tight to what we know works when we're trying to accelerate learning with tutoring instruction. Lindsay's going to dig into the specifics.
Yes. So I was brought in to support planning and design of the K-8 program this year, and we called it Eagle Camp. We had sort of a camp theme, and we tried to make it as fun for the kids as possible. Thanks to Heidi, I think I saw her over there. We housed the program at Allward this year, so all students were in one building this year, which was different than the summer previous. We had 210 students K-8 who were with us for the summer. 42 teachers and tutors supported those students, so we had a very high ratio of teacher to student. I was in the building every single day, and then we had PBIS specialists rotating in to support me with anything that students needed outside of the academic support they were getting from teachers and tutors. We met every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from July 11 to August 3rd. We had 2 sessions running, one from 8 to 10 and one from 10 to noon. We provided transportation, breakfast, backpacks, and back-to-school supplies for every student who came. So after the program was done, we kind of gathered feedback just like Kathy and Craig had done the year previous. And kind of we just picked out some highlights to share with you from parents, students, and staff. So 95% of parents that provided feedback said that they loved having the program in one building. That was something we weren't sure about when we were planning for this year, and it was a really positive experience. It kind of brought everyone together in one space, and it made kids feel, I think, like they were at school versus coming in for something that maybe they wouldn't be as excited about. An anecdotal feedback piece we got from a parent. Thank you so much for all your hard work. G enjoyed going to camp, and that is saying a lot because he doesn't like reading. The 2-hour sessions were great because it didn't feel like school to him. It was more fun, and it definitely helped prevent some of the summer slide. So then we also got feedback from our students. All 210 students gave us their feedback in a survey. Some were done paper pencil, some done on the Chromebooks, but we pulled out some of our favorite things. We had some comfort dogs come in during the day when we were at summer school, and they came in to do their training with the students, and that was overall what kids liked the best was the comfort dogs. It just kept coming through in that survey feedback over and over that they loved having those dogs come in, and so did I. They were amazing. And what someone said they liked least was eating cereal every day, which my son eats cereal 3 meals a day. So I thought that would be great. But and then feedback from teachers and tutors. Teachers felt that the small group and class sizes positively impacted their students.
And with that small group piece, we were able to use the data from our MTSS system to truly target exactly what the kids needed in a small group format. So that felt really good to have that data to inform our decisions and grouping. One thing that we added this year was progress monitoring. So in the previous year, we didn't track progress of our students through the program, but this year we did that in foundational skills as well as math. We tracked progress in first, second, and third grade foundational skills. When we looked at this data, we noticed that our older kids had more of an impact academically than our younger kids. So our littles came into us not quite first graders, and we realized that they had a really great benefit in social and in the routines of school, but it's something that we'll definitely consider moving forward, that maybe the first grade summer school program might need to look a little bit different in this area. But the second and third grade foundational skills growth was significant. And then we also progress monitored math, and so we were working with readiness standards, and what a readiness standard is a previous grade level math standard that we need to really have our students have a firm understanding in order to access the next grade level's content. And so we worked grades 1 through 8 around 30 readiness standards, and in all of those standards, the student growth percentage was 76%. So that's great. Greg.
All right. I didn't have too much to do with the elementary program, though I did dress as the eagle on day one and show off my moves. I do encourage the board to take a turn at some point in your tenure. I don't know if you're a true eagle unless you really do that. But I wanted to say just a few things about the summer program for high school. The 8th to 9th Jumpstart was 22 students. We invited 30. The middle school buildings identified students who they thought could use a little extra boost going into 9th grade. 22 showed up. So we worked on some ELA and math prep, just some basic, here's what you're going to need to know for 9th grade. And then did kind of orientation deluxe, where they did walkthroughs of their schedule, looked at clubs they could join, and just got used to the building. So we found it to be successful. There's not really a good measure as to how well they're doing besides last year's students who participated. I think all but 2 classes were passed. So for students who are struggling coming into it, I think that's a pretty good mark of this showing promise. It's not a lot of students, but if we can help 22 kids, I'd say that's a win. For the HS credit recovery, that is for students who missed credits throughout the year, and we're just trying to get them to make those credits up. So it's all virtual. This year we had them do a weekly check-in with their teachers to try and have more of a personal touch, and that seemed to help a little bit. We had 61 students participate and 40 credits earned. It's not as good as we would like, but for students whose first choice to come to school in the summer isn't really like high on their priority list, I guess, we feel pretty good about that. So gives them a little boost towards graduation, and like they mentioned, lowers or lessens the summer slide a little bit, even if they didn't get a credit. And that's all we had to share. Any questions or comments?
What were the start and end dates of both the Summer Jumpstart and the K-8?
July 11th through August 3rd.
July 11th to August 3rd. For all, and Jumpstart?
For the 8th to 9th grade, it was first week of August. I forget the exact date. We only met 6 different days for 2-hour sessions.
Okay.
So it was pretty brief.
Okay.
Yep. And then the summer school credit recovery, that started end of June and went through that first week of August.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
What was the potential of credits earned? They earned 40, but what was the potential that they could earn?
Well, students could potentially earn more than one
Okay.
if they progressed through classes and had more than one to earn. So tough to say exactly, but probably 80-ish
Okay.
if they would just crank it out. So yeah, it's hard.
Total credits. Some kids could earn 2, maybe 3 if they really reached.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of kids were just trying to make up one that they missed, but some had more than one that they could make up.
Thank you.
Is the ISD offering summer programs as well? Just curious what the ISD does.
I'm not aware of any academic credit earning programs. They have a number of different types of programs like I Challenge You, and kind of team building, collaboration kind of stuff.
Okay. Good, thank you.
How did enrollment change this year compared to previous years? Was it similar or?
I can speak to K-8. We were a little bit lower than we were the summer previous, but we felt like the impact that we were able to give was more intense because we had kids split into 2 different sessions. So the time that they were there was very intensive tutoring that was given to them. So there were about 30 less students this year than last year.
Yeah, for the high school, it was about the same. I think last summer we had a few more in the credit recovery and a few less in Jumpstart.
So Craig, did you have any conversations with these kids who didn't meet the target? Obviously, the target was to get at least 1 credit, and or their parents?
I did not directly. I was just the coordinator. The teachers, we had 5 teachers. They had a number of conversations, and we tried to brainstorm about the best ways to communicate. So we tried texting with Google Voice numbers, phone calls to parents, everything except for showing up at their houses. And, you know, there's only so much we can do. We can't force them. There's no leverage we have. Say, like, if you're not here, then this. So.
How about attendance? What was attendance like?
Attendance, so since it's all virtual, they weren't required to be in person, but we had a lot more participation in the lab times this summer than in previous years. I don't have specific numbers on that, but since we required that weekly check-in, that seemed to get more people coming in.
You have any feeling that having it not virtual, but having the kids in the classroom would have an impact on what you're doing?
I think it would improve outcomes if we could have it be in person every day. We had challenges with transportation and trying to set that up, and also just the cost that would be involved with staffing that every time. But certainly something we want to look at for next year too.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate all the work you guys are doing, and even as you're continuing from year to year to find more ways to gather actual data. That's helpful for us to see that, and so I thank you for taking the extra time to do that. It's important.
Key part of student achievement, right? Another key part of it, so thank you. Well done.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
So next up, we have our recognition of visitors and hearing of people present.
Keith Lyon Decker.
Just a second. Just a minute, please.
As you work towards your annual evaluation from Dr. Vanderjack, I want to highlight some past issues that need to be understood and addressed. They are the core reason for the current board makeup and were the impetus behind the significant decrease in bond renewal vote in 2022. The actions of our superintendent leading up to and culminating in the August 17th, 2021 special work session meeting spurred this community to new levels of involvement. Those actions centered around attempts to withhold information on the DEIB committee and teacher training from the board and the public. I challenge this board to watch the meeting on YouTube, I'll email you the link, and then try to state that Dr. Vanderjack was operating honestly. The district will not be able to move forward without properly dealing with the superintendent's actions. His actions were not a trivial difference of opinion. They clearly broke his employment contract and are grounds for his dismissal under Section 12.1a. The summary of some of those actions include: he covertly ran a DEIB committee that brainstormed ways to make this community less religious and less conservative and more aligned with leftist ideology. He actively denied this committee's existence to parents who heard about it through the grapevine. He then hired a self-proclaimed critical race theorist and had the gall to stand in front of our community and say the DEI program wasn't about critical race theory. In the lead up to the teacher training during summer of 2021, he told the board that there was no training material to review, when clearly there was material, which was uncovered through FOIA requests. And he claimed that the SOAR documents stating that they were embedding DEIB into the curriculum was somehow just a misunderstanding about what the word curriculum means. All these things are clearly documented by email or video evidence. The fallout from this was that Ken Hall had to awkwardly move the conversation into an unrelated closed session, after which the consultant was fired, the training was canceled, and the DEIB committee had to be reconstituted. This was not a singular event that our superintendent simply mishandled. This was the exposure of a continual behavioral pattern, and one that we see has continued unabated. From how the DEIB committee was reconstituted, to with previous members into the DAC, to how the administration structured the book review process, to threatening to withhold HPS business from a local restaurant during the 2022 election, to how the administration manipulates data they choose to present about ruler, and how Dr. Vanderjack personally conducted the SOAR focus groups instead of an unbiased facilitator. The pattern of behavior is consistent. I believe his actions violate his employment contract, and this board could quite easily look into the documents involved and find the same. I ask that you do just that. This district deserves to move forward, and that cannot happen under the current administration. Thank you.
Mindy Vanden Heuvel.
I applaud and agree with Keith. The superintendent evaluation is coming up. I was going to speak on other issues, but I've chosen to focus on this. The culture here at HPS has changed dramatically since Dr. Vanderjack has taken over. Previously, HPS was known for being a conservative district with high academic and moral standards. I have witnessed the steep decline over the past 5 years. While the board and Doug continue to claim that each child is valued and important, my experience has not been that. My children have been called crackers in the hallway, and no one bats an eye. Granted, they did not report it because they know that discipline is not a priority here at HPS anymore. Students can pretend to be animals, hissing, growling, and pawing at their fellow students, and instead of correcting them and explaining that they are humans, teachers and administrators coddle them and tell the rest of the student body that we need to tolerate that behavior. Litter boxes are for actual animals, not humans. At the very minimum, that's a sanitation issue. Doug has tried to introduce DEI here at APS. God created us all equal. Equality is completely different than equity. Receiving the same reward without putting in the same effort benefits no one. We are reaping what has been sown, and that students are all expecting to get the same results even though not all of them have put in equal effort. The ruler curriculum is toxic. Teaching our children at such a young age to identify and base everything off emotions is upside down and backwards. Emotions are to be put aside when dealing with conflict. Logic and reasoning can diffuse a situation or issue. Emotions add fuel to the fire and only escalate the problem. Many board members have felt targeted or attacked when public comments are filled with emotion, and I apologize last time for previous comments I made filled with emotion. Doug is good at meeting parents' needs individually, but once you compare them with other parents, you will quickly see that he is a master at giving you exactly what will resolve your situation. He's able to customize his response into whatever will make you feel best. He's not willing to take a hard stance on anything. He wants to bend and flex for each situation in order to keep peace or not offend anyone. This has led to very little discipline at both the student and administrative level. HPS is sliding farther and farther away from the school it once was, a school that people used to move into the area to attend. Regarding board members, Nick Bullheis, you campaigned on conservative values, and the first moment you had a chance to make a difference in this community, you flip-flopped and voted in the toxic SEL garbage. Board members pledged to respect their community that they serve. We as a community voted you onto this board to reflect our values. Yes, I realize that there are members of this community who do not hold these values, and they are welcome to share their points of view with the board members as equally as I share mine. We are entrusting all of you to accurately represent your community. I'm challenging you to touch base with more than just who makes you feel comfortable. Reach out to many community members to get a true feel for who you actually represent. I suggest having a town hall style gathering where board members can actually engage with community members. Public comment during these meetings is barely a sample of who's actually in this system. I ask for the resignation of Dr. Vanderjack.
Jenna Braun.
Okay, well, I'm going to start off with some positivity. I hope that everybody's start of the school year has been going great. I know we're back in the busy season, and I hope that the busyness hasn't been too much for you guys and it's been going smoothly. Normally when I come to these meetings, it's to talk about the need for LGBTQ inclusion in our schools, but tonight I wanted to talk about a little different form of inclusion that we've been witnessing at the 5-6 building at Georgetown, and praise the staff that have been there. Also, I want to just say that this is me speaking as an individual parent, of a student that are general education students and not a part of the CI program at the 5-6 building. I'm not sure if you know this, but at the 5-6 building, classes like math and ELA are co-taught by gen ed and resource teachers. What this means is that our students in the cognitive impairment classes are being taught alongside our gen ed students. Many of you might not understand why this is a big deal, but what this means is that the lessons in those classes are being modified to fit all of the students and not the other way around, like what's happening in our other buildings. And not only does this model of inclusivity benefit our CI and our autistic students, but it also touches on those students that have IEPs that might not otherwise have lessons modified for them in the gen ed classrooms. Having classes like math and ELA co-taught is a highly positive method of addressing a variety of learning needs. Not everyone learns the same, and anyone in the education field knows that. And this method highlights and includes learning for those with all abilities. This is a systemic look at an inclusive education and should be praised and congratulated and copied to all of our buildings. Students' academic careers should not be spent trying to fit into a school that isn't built for them, and our 5-6 building is a breath of fresh air for families that have been advocating for less pull-out and more push-in. Thank you to our amazing superintendent, Dr. Vanderjack, to our principal, Melanie McClure, and to all of our 5-6 administration, staff, and teachers for making this possible for all of our students at the 5-6 building. Lastly, I wanted to invite all of you to come and volunteer at our 5-6 building Amazing Race Celebration on October 19th. We still need 4 volunteers for our 6th grade classrooms. And it would be great to see you, if nothing else, at the party from 10 to 11 a.m. This would be an amazing opportunity for you to witness the cheering and the acceptance that all students feel at the 5-6 building, and we just hope to see you then. Thanks.
Aaron Doobie.
Lost my notes for a second. Greetings, board. I hope you haven't missed me too much while I've been away doing my water polo thing. Well, we just had our last home game. I encourage you to come out and catch some postseason games. It is incredibly exciting, especially this year when it doesn't feel like a state championship is a foregone conclusion like it has been many previous years. And you'll probably even see some friendly faces over here. Now, while I've been at the pool instead of these meetings, I've made sure to keep up on watching the videos. So thank you to you and also to all of the staff members who are involved in putting those online. Now, I'll admit, I'm a little optimistic after the past meeting, and I'm excited to hear that the board has a desire to do some work toward board goals and relationships, including a lot of talk around increased trust and transparency. But I have to admit, it's a cautious optimism, because that talk has been going on for quite some time now. And unfortunately, the actions of the board have struggled to reach the level to back that talk up. Right off the bat, the first thing this board did was the millage vote. And we all know what a mess that turned into. And when it came time to put that transparency talk into action, instead of offering a public accounting, all you gave were empty platitudes. So, if you are interested in making this about more than just words, I encourage you that you start with a public accounting of what happened then. That will get you back on the right track. I hope it includes things like Mr. Chansky's comment to President Hooper that Mr. Bullheis thought he was voting for the 1 year. So to be clear, for those of you that don't know, during that millage vote, and I quote, Mr. Chansky, you had texted Mrs. Hooper, President Hooper, Nick thought he was voting for my proposal, meaning Mr. Bullheis was confused and accidentally voted for 5 years when he thought he was voting for 1. I've confirmed with Mr. Bullheis that that is not the case. Mr. Chansky, you have spoken a lot about being transparent and willing to work with anyone, but yet I've emailed you this question 3 different times to both email addresses that I have for you. So allow me to ask again. What basis did you have to tell President Hooper that was true? I have seen none. There have been none presented. So please, I believe all of you as a board want to do this. You want to have your talk, your actions match your words. I just hope you have the courage to put it into action. Thank you.
All right. Next up, we have our consent agenda. Motion that the board approve the consent agenda action items that have been presented.
So moved.
Moved by Andrew,
I support that.
support from Mark. Are there any questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, passes. Next up, we have our regular action agenda. First up, we have our middle school course approval.
I'd like to turn over to Mrs. Taylor to talk about the middle school course proposals that the board did cover in the last work session.
Yes, so what you have before you are the list of the middle school courses that once again we're bringing to you for official approval so that moving forward we have a system where we're adding any additional courses to our documents. But this is really that starting place to be in alignment with board policy. As Dr. Vanderjack said, we did have the opportunity to review this list at our work session. I had not heard any other follow-up questions, but I'm certainly willing to hear any this evening if needed.
All right, so I have that the board approved the attached elementary courses as presented by Amy Taylor, the Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction.
So moved.
Movement by Nick. Support. Support from Dawn. Any questions for Amy?
We probably talked about this. I'm sure we did, but refresh my memory if you would. How do we know, how do we refresh when a class is like, we're just not seeing the kids that are interested and so forth, and it's okay, it's time to pull that one off, either to replace it or not, but can you walk that through one more time?
Sure. So really on an annual basis, our principals are reviewing the numbers of enrollments and requests for particular courses. Since the SOAR, I believe it was a SOAR 4 goal of increasing the number of middle school elective offerings, since that time, there's been continued repeated, annual review of the number of courses that are offered based on the number of students who are requesting those particular courses. And then we sometimes offer the course if there's interest, and then if there's low interest for that particular year, it's not really taken off the table. They just continue to be offered year after year. So that's really the process.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for Amy? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion's approved. Next up, we have our technology bid recommendation.
As usual, we'll ask Mr. Briggs to spend some money and at least make a recommendation to the board to spend some money. I'll turn it over to Pat to talk about our latest technology bid.
Thank you. Thank you. We had a really good discussion of this project. Give a couple highlights, what we've discussed it in great detail at the work session. Basically, it's 2 vendors that came out on top here. We reviewed the bid tab, which also is attached, but the recommendation is to approve Moss for a contract of $789,842 and Parkway for $304,273. Moss is going to be responsible for cabling clocks, public address, and upgrading audio visuals systems in Park and Bauer. And the same Parkway is going to do access controls for in Park and Bauer, but also handle basically the finishing out of the district. We have a lot of places that don't have the upgraded encryption in the swipe cards, so that's going to finish out the external doors in the rest of the district. So without me going into everything, are there any questions over that? Thank you.
I'll move that the board approve a contract with Moss Telecommunications Services of Grand Rapids, Michigan in the amount of $62,248.02 for low voltage cabling, $454,837.88 for multimedia systems, $104,379.26 for a public address system, and $168,376.62 for clocks and timers, for a total value of $789,841.78. Also, to approve a contract with Parkway Electric and Communications LLC of Holland, Michigan in the amount of $304,273.40 for building access systems as presented by Patrick Biggs, our Assistant Superintendent of Business and Finance.
I'll move that.
Support by Mark.
Support.
Support from Andrew. Are there any questions for Pat? All right, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, motion passes. Next up, we have our administrative committees.
Yeah, so this is a discussion item to the Board of Education. Every year, our administrative team, starting with central office, determine what committees our administrators actually serve on, that serve on throughout the year. Now, obviously, there are ad hoc committees that are formed throughout the year, and there's things that come up that we didn't plan on. COVID is a perfect example of that. But we have other things that might come to fruition. This is, we ask our administrators, we give them a list of all the committees, they are all sitting here. And then they sign up for what they might be interested in, something that maybe is in their wheelhouse, something that may interest them. We ask them to chair a committee and be the member of at least 3 committees, 2 or 3 committees. Some choose 4, and some are chosen for 4. Some are voluntold. Nice, pleasant. Hey, don't you want to join this? So before you see a list, and this is still a draft, they did get a chance to look at today. If there are questions or we want to remove some things around, that happens. But this gives us an opportunity. For example, if we have questions about maybe some artificial intelligence, we're starting to work on some instructional technology. Instead of randomly calling 5 or 6 administrators, Craig leads that committee. You can see who serves on that committee with him. He can reach out to those administrators and talk about that. These are the committees for the 2023-24 school year. You can see it listed by committee on the left-hand side, and then you also have a draft copy that has by administrator, so you can see where they fall. Again, there are always some changes that take place throughout the year, but I thought it was important for the board to at least see some of the work that will be taking place. Anything that comes out of these committees still will come to the board for approval if it's action that needs to be taken place by the district, whether it's curriculum changes, policy changes that are affected, things like that. So but want to get a chance for you to see. You can see at the bottom, first of all, you have 5 groups of committees based on our SOAR 4 plan, which we're still working through. You have curriculum, you have special services, you have human resources, you have finance, and you have co-curricular. And then at the bottom, you see our curriculum committees, which exist, as you can imagine, every year, because those are things we focus on. So I want to share this with the board. You're welcome to take this with you. If you have questions regarding who's where and what this looks like, I know we talked a little bit about it, the 2 of us, or the 3 of us here. Most of these committees, people have served on different committees over the course of time. Some have stayed fairly consistent. If you look at, for example, I'll look at the Sex Ed Advisory Board. It's a committee that's approved by the board already. So we have something that falls with that group is already there. We have a Diversity and Advocacy Committee. Those are members that we have discussed with the board at length of how that committee was chosen. So those members Whether they wanted to join or leave, they are still on that committee until that process changes. So I wanted to share this with the board. I didn't know if you had any questions. And this was one of those items. I will, full transparency, is we have a very lengthy work session coming up in the future. And this is one item I thought maybe we could talk about tonight. If there are questions, because we had this prepared for our administrators today, if there are questions today, we can discuss it.
So these sort of like rotating, like so for instance, if there's nothing to be discussed per se, then they just don't meet.
It could happen. I'll give you an example. The evaluation committee that Delia is heading up under Ann's leadership, if that changes through the House, Senate, through the governor's office, and through the Michigan Department of Ed, then she's going to want to get together with the committee and say, all right, what is this? How does this impact teacher evaluations? And what does that look like? If nothing changes, they might not have to meet. It all depends on what happens. District growth is something, it's an ongoing group that we like to meet with and talk about, the impact of different district growth in different areas of the community.
Can you talk a little bit about the curriculum committees at the bottom, or the subject, I guess you call them, committees at the bottom, and the interplay between those and, department chairs and so forth? Can you expand on those?
Sure. So, yes, we have department chairs throughout. We have grade level chairs, but these are more of a global. This group helps lead some of those discussions with the committee chairs, and then through the departments. So that's why you try to get a mix. If you can look at the list, you can see there's middle school, elementary, high school. You have different people falling in different areas. And a lot of times, I can tell you as an administrator, if I were asked, I would probably say I'd like to join the math committee because that was my background. But somebody else might say, you know what, math was my background, but I'd like to join the science committee or the English committee because I want to get a feel for what that looks like. So they help, it's bringing, I would say it's bringing the curriculum 30,000 foot to this group at 20,000. And we get to our department chairs at 10,000, which work our way down to the classroom.
Okay, so the objective is to, I'll just throw some things out there, you can tell me if they're right or wrong, but stay aligned with state objectives, look at best practices across other, so it's a high level look at curricula, at these subject areas, and what can be done to improve those, and then bake that down into specific areas.
So if you think about when we have a lot of our data discussions around state and even local assessments, sometimes we have to take a deeper dive into what might be working and what might not be working. And from that standpoint, then it comes into, if we look at an alignment or a pacing issue with fifth grade in a content area. It can start with this group having a conversation about, are we implementing new math standards? Are we implementing a new process for math? What does it look like? If we do it at fifth grade, how does it impact sixth grade or fourth grade? What does that look like if we want to change pacing at the high school? We might have to go all the way back to sixth grade to start the pacing work until it works its way into the high school. This group helps lead that conversation.
Okay, gotcha, thank you.
Maybe tagging onto that a little bit, some of these are pretty self-explanatory what the committees are going over. Do we have like a definition you could give us of like, hey, this is what this committee, this is their charter, or this is their paragraph of what they're tasked to do?
Yeah,
exist?
I can tell you that I think most of them are pretty self-explanatory, but they're also very broad.
Okay.
Right? So when it comes to some of the, I'm just looking at a couple of them. So handbooks, I'll look at staff and student. There's always a need to have a handbook. We always think about handbook for kids, right? You go to high school, here's your handbook, here's your code of conduct, here's what you can and can't do. What does it look like at the middle school? And is there consistency between the middle schools? Not only that, is that consistent handbook also follow board guidelines, which then are administrative guidelines, and do those guidelines follow board policy? So we have this board policy overarching at the top that you are here for. Then we have administrative guidelines that we set based on board policy. And then there are handbooks that then follow the guidelines, which have to all be in line. Are they consistent between buildings? And then it goes down to the elementary level. When you think about, and there hasn't been really a consistent, I would say, elementary handbook that we've all followed. So that group is doing some work on trying to bring some consistency and updates. Because things change. When policy changes, when laws change, we have to continue that. So then you take that to another step and you think about staff. What do staff have? When you come in as a new staff member, is it, here's your English book, go teach? Or here's a handbook that tells you, quite frankly, how do you call in sick? What does it look like from a staff standpoint, all the different information that you have? And there's new teacher orientation, which Mrs. Armstrong does an amazing job with her team bringing our new teachers through, but it's a lot. And so how do you make sure there's a solid handbook for our staff? And you have to look at support staff. So most of these committees are kind of that overarching theme of what it looks like. But there are some that will just take time to develop, and to Dawn's point, some of them don't meet unless there's a need to meet.
So the air conditioning evaluation, is that like a short-term committee? I mean.
That's up to the
what's
Board of
that,
Education.
finances?
So that,
I was gonna say that one, but I was gonna bring that one up.
we're gonna get into our strategic plan, SOAR 5 coming up in the near future here. And that is something we have heard a little bit with our survey results. We hear a lot from families. I know the board does, I know administration does. Not as much today, or maybe not for another 6 months, but we hear about it. So that committee, the design around that committee is to study it, to look at, hey, what does this look like? What is the cost? What is the feasibility? What is the transition? What does it look like from, we've talked about staff retention and student retention when it comes to, do you want to teach in a building that's going to be potentially 92 degrees, or do you want to teach in a building that's going to be 78 and mostly cloudy? So those committees, again, if there's anything that comes out of these committees, they still, if there are recommendations, they still come to the board.
Pretty sure the chair of that committee is going to be pretty frugal and conservative when it comes to expressing
Oh.
opinions.
He's not here.
I know, sorry, I think he would agree.
Mr. McDowell back there, I think
You can let him know I said that.
He's not studying air conditioning right now.
No.
Dr. Vanderjack, do each one of these committees fall under the same policy and guidelines?
Tell me more.
You said there's board policies. Do each one of these committees fall under those board policies?
They don't. They're not board-formed committees.
No, I
They're
understand
administrative
that.
committees. So they all have to follow board policy.
Well, what type of a structure is there when it comes to decision-making with these different committees?
Well, it's the same. They're all any decisions that are made go through, whether they go through building principal, sometimes they go through department chair, sometimes they work their way up to central office,
Mhm.
they work their way up to superintendent, conversation with the board if it's something that falls under the board's decision making, or if it doesn't. So they all have to follow board policy,
Okay.
if that's what you're
From
asking.
that perspective?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's no separate guidelines or policies for one team as opposed to another?
No.
Okay.
Any other questions for Dr. Vanderjack?
So I guess this is for information, or are you looking for?
No, I just wanted to share it with you. It's
Okay.
important for you to know some of the
Yeah.
work that's taking place on a regular basis through the district.
There's no action for us on
Nope.
this, it's just, okay.
No, these are administrative committees, these are board-formed committees, but it's the work we do. The work behind this is really, if it drives the strategic plan to progress the district forward, this is the work that takes place kind of in the trenches to then bring things out, recommendations to the board, if there are changes that we're going to recommend. If there are curriculum changes, we hope it comes out of this work. If there are air condition changes, and then Pat asks you to pass whatever the cost would be for air conditioning, which we don't know, but those are decisions that the board would then get to.
Any other questions? All right, hearing none, we'll go to our report items. And first up is our student council with Jane. Welcome back.
Hello, everybody. I don't know if this is, it is? All right. Okay. So most of what I have is homecoming recap. Starting with our Powder Puff game, which we had a really awesome turnout this year. If you don't know, that's our junior versus senior girls football game. Seniors won. I found my calling as an offensive lineman, so working on getting my scholarships for that. Also, our Spirit Week, we did a little something a little bit different this year, which in addition to dress up day, we also did like bring in a food item each day, and that actually went really awesome. So we brought in over 1,000 items, and we're hoping to like keep this up for future years. Homecoming game. Colton Hansen and Ashanti McKnight were our king and queen. So I don't know if you guys know them, but they're both really awesome students. So we're glad that they got recognized. The dance on the 30th, we sold 1,500 tickets, over 1,500 tickets. We did online this year rather than paper tickets, which we found saved a lot of time and energy and made it a lot easier. And then upcoming, we have our blood drive on the 27th, so I will report the numbers from that next month. And then as a student council, we are starting our year-long committees, so like our student of the month, teacher appreciation, so we can shift more to our school projects and forget about homecoming. So that's what we got going. If anyone has any questions, but pretty straightforward.
Any questions for Jane? You had a beautiful day for homecoming. Yeah.
And you're being modest. You didn't let everybody know you were on court as
Oh.
well. So congratulations.
Thank you.
And I think I always love hearing the what everybody like plans to do next year and all of these grandiose ideas, which I would like to go like 5 years like down the road and see like that all that come true. I thought you had like the best. Like you're like, I don't know what I want to do next year, and you're gonna like figure it out.
Yeah, thank you. I'm telling the truth.
Yeah. It was honest one there. It was great. I was like, I turned to my wife. I'm like, I know what you don't have to know. You figure it out. It's great.
So when you said you collected over 1,000 food items, I'm assuming that's like canned goods or things
Yes.
that you could donate
Yes.
to.
Yep.
Do you know where you're delivering those to?
A lot of it is going to the school. Like we have our like resource teachers that use those for like more of the snacky stuff, and then the canned ones go to the hand to hand.
Great, thank you so much.
All right, we'll move on next to our building updates, and we'll start with Howard.
Thank you. I'm Josh Mearsma, Principal. Hello, Principal at Bauer Elementary. Robin, I believe, shared a document just because there's a lot of stuff going on at Bauer. First off, we have construction underway. There was about a week and a half during the summer where I just showed up one day in the parking lot and there was a big structure and I was like, okay, it's happening. And it's very exciting. You'll see some pictures here from the playground side of the building, just some time lapse, if you will, of the progress that's being made. Today, they finished, or very nearly finished, installation of a new playground structure. They just need to put up the border and bring in some wood chips. They also poured the interior floors today. So it's very exciting. It's getting closer and closer. The next item, we had our annual walkathon, raised $30,000 and some change. The goal was only $20,000, and we were only $300 shy of what we raised last year with an extra grade in the building since the fifth graders went to the 5-6 at Georgetown. 700 donations from 26 states and Canada, and there's a link to a slideshow that was put together of the day and the events. On that same day in the afternoon, close to dismissal time, we had we partner with Chapel Point on different things, and there's a gentleman there who was kind enough to come over and use his drone to take a picture of our entire building. All the students were given their shirts for the year the day of the walkathon, so it was a good day to take care of that picture because we were all dressed the same. And you see a picture right there. It looks really sharp. Turned out well. And then from around the district, I know our other elementaries are having ACT meetings where we discuss interventions and student data. Parent-teacher conferences are coming up, so teachers are always interested in parent-teacher conferences and sharing progress and growth areas for students with families. And then Mackenzie shared that Color the Park was on Friday, the 6th of October. This is very similar to other buildings that host a walkathon. And it was rainy, but they had a great time. And that park is being demolished in places, and it's quite loud, but they're excited. So, are there any questions for me? All right, thank you. I'll pass it off to Pete.
All right, good evening. Pete Gerling, principal at Jamestown Lower. Share some things that teachers have been working on and then students and families. Like Josh had mentioned, the past few weeks we've been working in our ACT meetings. Teachers come together as grade levels, unpack the data, and then try to plan on how we're going to support all students. Every time I'm in these meetings, I'm just in awe at the skill our teachers have. It's one thing to collect data, but to really unpack that data and narrow the focus onto what students really need is a skill that I think all the teachers at Jamestown Lower have. We spent this week meeting as building teams to kind of focus on aligning our goals with school improvement. We have teams that focus on homeschool relations, behavior, and then data collection too. And then we also have an ISD coach, literacy coach in our building, and she has been working with teachers and students on student talk. If you have a chance to come in and see this in action, it's very cool to see first graders sitting in a circle, actively listening, paraphrasing each other, and having like these almost very adult conversations about different topics. It's really cool to see. From a student and family perspective, our second grade SOAR store is up and running. We have parent volunteers coming in every Friday to make sure that those students that have earned enough SOAR cards are able to purchase those items. Watchdogs is up and running. That's when we have fathers come into the building. It's really cool to watch them kind of passing out those SOAR cards, be on the playground, be in the cafeteria. I feel like they always feel like a celebrity walking through the halls because everyone's just running up trying to give them hugs. We started something new in second grade this year called the CARE team. It's empowering our second graders to take pride in the building. 5 students are selected every week. They wear some pennies that were donated by the PE teacher. And they'll kind of walk the halls, make sure the lockers are shut, make sure any lost and found items are brought to the lost and found. And it's really funny because by Thursday, they're like, we don't really have anything else to do. I'm like, yeah, because you're doing such a great job. You're taking care of the building and all these things. And they're like, yeah, we are. And kind of give each other a high five, which is really cool to see. We have our harvest party coming up on October 31st. Do a parade around the building, and then we invite families to have donuts and cider outside with students. And then I think we're done with Football Fridays. That is a great partnership we have with the football team. It seems like we had probably 8 football players in the building this year. We have a substantial number of second grade boys that are playing football. So when these football players walk in, they're just in awe and they're having them sign their jerseys and they'll go outside and play. So it's really cool to see that connection with our smallest students and the high school students. They're great role models. And then today we had a really cool event called the Big Apple Crunch. We're partnered with Corewell Health, and that is a partnership where we're bringing awareness to healthy eating and exercise and movement. And so today at 10 o'clock, we all took an apple and took a big crunch at the same time. That was really cool. Any questions about things going on at Jamestown Lower?
Josh, you mentioned this also, but ACT stands for
Academic Collaborative
Yeah.
Teams.
Yeah, thank you.
So our MTSS specialists in the building, along with teaching staff at particular grade levels, will rotate through and they go into a room and they take our MTSS specialists, gather all the data and set the agenda. So teachers come in and just start pulling it apart, as Pete mentioned, to break students into groups for intervention work and move them forward as best we can, as quickly as we can.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Riley Street Middle School with Matt Baer.
So hi, thanks. My name is Matt Baer. I have the honor and privilege of serving as the assistant principal at Riley Street Middle School, working with Bill Ross, who's not able to make it tonight. So for the middle school update for us, we are coming up to the end of the first quarter. It's 2 weeks away, which means we are literally a quarter of the way through school. I think Dr. Vanderjet already shared that Christmas is on its way, spring break will be here before you know it, and it'll all be summer break again. And then Craig will start with summer school. So Craig, get that ready. Concert season is upon us. Last night we had our choir concert, which was really fun to see. Our orchestra is next week, which is split into 2 separate nights because of the amount of students that we have in orchestra this year. And then band is the following week after that. We have all of our 6th graders participating in music, which is a lot. For us at Riley, that's about 230 students, give or take, maybe ones that are doing a few other things, but everybody's in there. So if your favorite music on your playlist is Hot Cross Buns or Boil the Cabbage Down, you are in for a treat for the next 2 weeks, so make sure you check that out for orchestra and for band. It's been a long time listening to orchestra music and then getting going, but it's also really exciting. I have a 6th grader myself, and it's just really cool to see their excitement as they get their hands on these instruments. Music is no small feat, and our orchestra teachers, our band teachers, our choir teachers are phenomenal, and the ways that they work with these young 6th graders trying to understand middle school is incredible. As was shared too, with we're in that middle of that ACT conversations and data dialogues. A huge shout out to Kathy Lewandowski and all of our MTSS people for the work that they do on the side to pull this data and to help our teachers understand and unpack. We have piloted a program this year called our WIN program, which is similar to our elementary friends who have been doing this for years, which is called What I Need. It's in place of our TCB program. Basically a flexible time. We have half an hour every Tuesday and Thursday to help focus on intervention enrichment. And it's been off to a great start. In our change this year, what we have done is we've tried to use data. Again, shout out to MTSS, to identify learning gaps that students have, as identified by Delta Math screeners and STAR tests and all those things. And then any kid that is proficient in those categories or has done the work to do that, we've provided a good number of enrichments to do that. So to give you some examples, if a kid was struggling in fractions, we have been able to break down a half an hour twice a week where 4 to 5 students who are struggling in fractions have the chance to work with a certified teacher for a half an hour working on that, because we know it's fundamental. And to send a kid off to Mr. Beal at the high school, and that's something that they're struggling with, is we can't have that happen. And so we've been trying to be really intentional with doing that. But then also for our students who have met that criteria, they have an opportunity to engage in enrichment. And we've had things such as cooking class, where students are experiencing chemistry in a science class. It works out in baked goods. Not a bad class to sign up for. Investing 101, where we have kids that are competing with stock markets. We had a local, I think he's an accountant, but I'm going to say he pretended to be a financial advisor, come in and ask kids like, hey, I need your help. I need to invest this amount of money. What stock should I do? And the questions started rolling for all these kids. And you should see them typing away. They've got their stat sheets. It's not like the trading floor of the stock market, but outside Mr. Apple's room is literally week by week totals and who's winning and what stock is going on. And it gets intense. And then we also have a good group of kids that are redesigning our outdoor space. We don't have recess, we don't have playgrounds, but we also know our kids need to move. And so every day we have our kids go outside or in the gym, shoot hoops and do those things, but they've been tasked with how do we make our outdoor space more usable and more friendly, and they've come up with right now a beach volleyball court. We know a few people that work with excavating, because we already had some 7th graders come up to us and say, I know how to run a bobcat. And so we may have some questions we need to work through with that. But the excitement is there, and I think that's truly what this time is meant to be. It's meant for a time where we know kids that have learning gaps, to hit those learning gaps, but also for our kids that, we're good. Let's experience some other stuff. All of those things are tied into learning and standards as well. So our enrichment kids get a little bit of a different taste. Again, we're piloting it. We have a lot to learn and a lot to reflect on, but we're excited where it's at the moment. Any questions?
I'll say that my son, who's in your building, he's been enjoying. I think WIN is going well for him. He's been in the ELA portion. I think it's because he bombed his first test. And I would put that more on the 6th grade boy, not really trying first time. Yeah. So, but he's got back up to an A. So I would think that extra time's helping him, and he's ready to do some of those fun things and get out of the ELA win. Now that his grades back up. So.
If it makes you feel any better, my daughter was in the same boat. But I think it also is a testament to the tests that we give, that being the Delta Math Screener and the STAR assessment. We have kids, as many of you have, maybe middle schoolers at one time, they tend to not take those things seriously. This has then helped both
He's not
Nick's
assisting,
son
I'll tell
and
you
my
that.
daughter to take those a little more seriously because it matters, and that's what we're using as data to help understand whether or not you have gotten the concepts and the material, and that's what we're here for. So,
thanks to you all for doing that. It's
no,
great.
appreciate it. It's an adventure, so we're learning every day.
All right, up next, Mr. Jordan Beal at the high school.
Yeah, thank you. Jordan Beal, principal at the high school. Happy to give a report, but just to piggyback on that, I've got two at Riley that are both enjoying wind time as well. And I'm going to shout out to Mr. Geerling because I've got a second grader that's part of the care team, and he tells me all about it, so thank you for that. It's kind of fun to hear those stories coming home. At the high school, coming up next week, we have 158 juniors who have elected to take the PSAT. What's different about that this year, though, is that it's digital. So we spent some time the last couple of seminar times having a digital readiness check, the Chromebooks, to make sure that the testing environment works, that everything was updated, and we're glad we did that because there were some issues with updating the operating system, and we had kudos to Jeff Smucker and his team. We had several of his team there ready to help those juniors that signed up get their devices ready to go so that on PSAT days, which are next week, Wednesday and Thursday, they're going to test in groups that we'll be able to do that with the Chromebooks, and everything should go smoothly. And it's a good time for them to get some exposure to what the testing environment is going to look like, because this will be the first time that we'll do in the springtime all of the junior class taking the SAT digitally. So we're used to those boxes of all of the bubble sheets and all of the booklets, and we're not going to have to do that this year, which is exciting for the testing coordinators. And we're going to do it on the digital on the Chromebook, so with everyone. So this will be a good trial run next week for PSAT. Fall sports are kind of getting into the point where they're postseason play or conference tournaments. I wanted to highlight one because we have a brand new club sport this year that had their senior night kind of at a scrimmage last night, and it's field hockey, and it's really popular, and we have a lot of, I think about 40 of our female athletes signed up to do that, which is trying for a new sport, which is pretty cool. So I thought that was kind of worthy of mention. Just having field hockey is something I never thought that we would get here, but it's pretty cool. It's got a lot of popularity. We're also in the middle of our choirs and band and orchestra concert season as well. Some of those are wrapping up this week, and it's great to it's kind of unbelievable that we're already 1 month away from trimester exams and having concert season come up, because it seems like we were just starting. And I had some homecoming updates that, of course, I knew Jane was going to kind of talk about too, so thank you, Jane. But we do have parent-teacher conferences next week as well. So teachers are getting ready for those, and we're going to do a new setup this year, not using the current main gym, which we're going to be calling the central gym eventually. And we're going to have all of the teachers, rather on one side or the other of the bridge, be all in one area. So we're going to try that. So it'll be a little bit different, but hopefully more beneficial for parents who are coming in. And then I don't want to take Dr. Vanderjack's construction updates, because usually he will share some of those, but it is pretty exciting that this week the flooring in the gym and in the in the field house and in the weight room area are being installed. So it really starting to feel like the end is in sight, and seeing the crew in there kind of nailing those gym floor slats in feels like, okay, we're getting there. So it's pretty impressive what that facility is going to look like. So there's a lot of fun coming our way, and some of those big projects like the cafeteria and the field house coming to conclusion. So it's an exciting time at the high school. Even though there's a lot of dust around, we're ready for these projects to wrap up. It's going to be awesome when it's done. So thank you. Any questions for me?
Any questions for Jordan?
So if you've ever been to the airport and you see a plane coming in and there's a light on the plane, and you feel like it's about ready to land, but it's a long ways away yet. So as Mr. Beal talks about the floor of the gym, if you can imagine installing 1-inch slats on a floor the size of the field house, it's going to take some time. But it is noisy in there. It is fun to watch. Construction's coming along nicely. The weight room turf has been put down. The weight room flooring goes in next week. The track and the tennis court begin installation the following week. The bleachers then go in about that same time. They start to sand it down, and within the next 2 years we'll be playing basketball. It'll be sooner than that. So, but it's coming along next. It's exciting. We'll get a chance to get the board through there. If you do want to, as the board members, if you're interested, let me know. We can get through there sooner. But there's still a lot going on. But it's the nice part is right now there's so many moving parts. I was there today. I had an opportunity to take on a tour of Art Wolf and Roxanne DeWeird. I took the two of them through the facility. And that was the most people I saw on site working today because they can all work on different things. They're not waiting for each other. So it was exciting. As mentioned, Park Elementary is not being demolished, but part of it is being demolished. It was fairly noisy. Half of the interior hallway was being demolished today, which was exciting. So we did not allow Mrs. Stefanich to work in a bulldozer or anything, but that's coming along nicely. Looking forward to that transition. Before you know it, that gym will take shape. No different than Bowers Gym, as Mr. Mearsma said. So those two projects are coming along nice. As the high school starts to wrap up, then we start to move a little bit of our attention over to the Early Childhood Center because there is some internal work that we do at the Early Childhood Center, and then we'll see what's next after that. But that's kind of where we are with construction. I had a chance to meet with building principals along with Mrs. Taylor and her team regarding our assessment data that we received. So we had some great meetings with our high school staff, with our middle school staff, with our elementary staff, administration, regarding our assessments and start to really break down some things that are what we call controllable and then uncontrollables. And we'll get a chance to talk more about that at our work session, but I wanted to, I did want to thank our principals for attention to that work. I also had a chance to meet with Georgetown Township this past week. There's been some conversations about the 5-6 building, student traffic to and from the building. As you know, maybe you don't know, there are no sidewalks along 36th. It ends at Wesco. It does not go through the apartment complex. It does not go through past our soccer field. It does not go through the home that's there. It does not go past our property and past the home. So there's been conversations, maybe not potentially about sidewalks. There's a little bit of a dip in there. We're having conversations. Maybe there's an internal walk. But we're having great dialogue with Georgetown Township about how to work together and making sure kids are getting safe to and from the 5-6 building, Georgetown, and the middle school over there, Bolton. We did have an opportunity to discuss additional crossing guards. As you may know, we have Georgetown Elementary. We have a crossing guard set for not only entrance to and from Georgetown, but 36th and Baldwin, where there is a crosswalk. We have a crossing guard there that is put in place by Ottawa County and through Georgetown Township. But that doesn't include secondary start times, which the 5-6 building falls under. So we had conversations about extending that time. We're working through those details. Quite frankly, it might come to fruition as early as Monday of next week. So we're working hard on getting that done. There was also a request for 40th and Baldwin. If you know, it's kind of a three-way. It's fortunate or unfortunate. There's a beautiful path along Baldwin. There's also a beautiful path that goes through the Georgetown campus, through the middle school campus, and it dumps out near that interchange. The problem is at 40th and Baldwin, there's no three-way stop, there's no crosswalk, there's no traffic light. So to put a crossing guard there is extremely dangerous when the speed is going to be different, especially as we know it's a little bit darker in the morning now, and it gets darker. It's just hard. A day like today, it's hard no matter what time of day it is. So that is a conversation I'm trying to have with Ottawa County Road Commission, which is different than Georgetown because they control that environment. Do I think that's going to come to fruition? I don't know, but it's worth the conversation. The additional crossing guard will be helpful, and then our building principals working with Mr. Creek, Mr. Waldy, Mrs. McClure, talking to the kids about you have to cross at 36th and Baldwin until we have other options, but we got to be cautious of that. So we're working through this. Definitely there are growing pains with the new building. There's a beautiful sign, I'm just going to say this, outside of the building, on the building itself that says the 5-6 building at Georgetown. If you drive by there in the evening, you don't need your lights on. It is bright. So I've had great conversations with the neighbors across the street. They're very patient and they're amazing. we're doing the best we can to try to work with this and try to get this going. But great conversations with Georgetown Township. All the neighbors in the area, I've had conversations with all of them on a regular basis about water runoff and lights and traffic, and we're also working on traffic in and out of the building. So there's a lot we're working through, but they've been very patient, gracious, and giving us great feedback what's going on. I want to thank Mrs. McClure and her team also, and really Mr. Petrolia in our safety department also there working through that. Had a conversation with the board. I think Robin sent out an email about opportunities. We do have a pretty lengthy work session coming up at the end of the month, asking the board if we can meet maybe alternate days. There is some conflict with a couple of you, so we will be changing the start time for our next board meeting to 5 p.m. work session, which will take place in here. We'll do the best we can to try to schedule it accordingly. I know I've been working with President Hooper on getting the right order in the meeting. Maybe take a little bit of a stretch break. We'll figure that part out, and we'll cover as much as we can, and maybe we'll put items at the end. If we can't quite get to them, we'll figure that out. But there are items we really need to cover in October, because November it gets tight, and then it's Christmas, then it's spring break, and then graduation. So we'll get through that. And one last item. I know we are halfway around the world from the conflict taking place in Israel, Gaza, and all of, but we do have kids that are affected by it. We have families that are affected by it. And I just ask that we keep them in our thoughts. When conflict arises throughout different parts of the country, a lot of times we feel in our safe country, in our safe area, in our safe homes. But we have families that are affected, and we just ask we keep them in our thoughts and prayers. Thank you.
Okay, next up, the board is going to go into closed session. You are more than welcome to stay here until we return. How long do you think we'll be?
7 minutes. It should be less than 10 minutes.
Relatively short. All right.
President Hooper, could I just say something in case we lose some people? I first want to talk about the Hudsonville Education Foundation. They're having their Eagles of Excellent Gala on November 6th, Monday, November 6th. So anyone who's able to partake in that, we're going to be honoring a couple of distinguished alumni along with a number of our students who are achieving excellence in their scholarship. And that's a way for the foundation to recognize people, but also earn funds to be able to support the things that they're supporting with the school district. They're a very passionate group of people. They do an excellent job. And so just keep an eye out for the opportunity to attend this. It's at the Pinnacle Center from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. on Monday, November 6th.
One of the most exciting and encouraging events of the year for
Mhm.
us.
Absolutely.
I encourage everybody who can to go to that event. It's outstanding.
Yeah, it is, and the food is always really good, and the money raised helps with student scholarships, and they do a lot of great work and a lot of great initiatives for teachers in the classroom, so it is a wonderful event.
I believe they have to buy tickets ahead of time, correct?
Yes.
That'll work.
All right, I need a motion to go into closed session.
I'll move that.
Motion from Mark, support from Dawn, and we'll do roll call. Mark?
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
Art, yes.
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 All right, we are in closed session. Okay, we will go ahead and do a roundtable, and I will start with Mr. Davis here on IDOT.
Thank you very much. I did tell them personally, but I appreciate the summer school presentation tonight. I was one of those students the teachers worried about, and that would have helped me, although I hated summer school. I'm hoping that sooner rather than later we can address the issue of enrollment numbers historically and going forward here, gathering data from the surrounding schools and what's happening in our district here. And I think also considering the growth of our county in particular. So I'm hoping that will be dealt with sooner rather than later. That's all I have.
Just a comment on all the excitement around all the buildings and projects going on around the district. It's funny to hear Mr. Mearsman talk about Bauer. And when I was at Bauer in the 90s, it was literally just the north-south portion of that building. And I think when I was in second grade, they added on to the other section. And now both of my boys are there, and it's cool to see the growth of the district and also what it means for opportunities for students, right, with all the good stuff we got going on. So thanks for all the good work Dr. Vanderjack and your team are doing. It's appreciated.
And someone says, when I was at Bauer in the 90s, it makes me feel older. That's all I have.
Yeah, so in our board briefs on Friday, there's I thought some really interesting things. And you and I talked about the program with the ISD, Grand Valley, kind of alternative paths for people that don't have a teaching degree to get a teaching degree quicker. And we all hear about the teacher shortage and all that. So that was really cool to hear. So hopefully that bears fruit in the coming years. And then I loved the update too on the employee wellness initiatives that we do from Angie. I know there's a lot that goes into that. As a district, we're putting a lot into it. I was just wondering, and again, everything's got to be confidential. I get that, but do you get any metrics on like how many staff are taking advantage of all those resources?
We do, and we can share it with the board. We actually just ran a report last week.
Oh,
yeah.
Cool. It'd be cool. It's great. It's a great resource, and I hope people are taking advantage of it.
Yeah, and it definitely shows us like what more we can do to get more.
What are they taking advantage of, and
exactly.
Perfect. That'd be great to see that.
Yep.
I just wanted to say kudos to Stephanie, who keeps up the website and keeps us apprised of all the cool things going on. And I know this month, the last couple of weeks, it was all about our custodians. And I happened to talk to one custodian on Friday night, and he was telling me, he goes, yeah, they put out a little blurb, and I put in there all the things that I like. And he said, I have enough of this particular payday bar and these brownies for a year. So to hear that appreciation and knowing that, and just those are the kind of things that we don't always hear about, but yet are so relevant and so important, not only to our staff, but our community too. So thank you, Stephanie, for your ongoing work and posting those things.
We've got to get Stephanie a stand. So she had her arm up the whole night. We're getting tired.
Great to see the presentation on summer programs. That's, again, fundamental foundational to our student achievement goals and objectives. This is what we're about. I've got a MASB State Board Government Relations meeting next week, Friday in Lansing. I don't have an agenda yet. If there's anything relevant, I'll be sure to get that up to the board. So that's it.
And I agree, and it's great to hear about the summer programs, and it was really nice to get the update from the schools. It's nice to have that extra. All right, I will take a motion to adjourn then. Support from John. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Same sign. All right, we are adjourned.